toast to the world, we're hitting first base. Marty Lurie with friends, home run. You know the ways and the trends, the stories all with the match of the block. It's Marty and friends. Marty and friends.
Oh, you're muted, Marty. There you go.
All right. She's a star, Ruby Barmay. I love it. Thanks for that little for us. Welcome to Marty Lurie and friends. I do have friends somewhere talking baseball, and we'll be with you for a bit and catch you up on some of the spring training stuff and what's going on around baseball, and just a nice hour of talking ball, and that's what it's all about. So I appreciate everyone being here. If you're watching for the first time, hit the subscribe button. This is good. And if you want to make a comment, there's a spot on the side to make comments, and we will read them on the air. Rick Brown starts it off. Hey, Marty, how about that Giants power? And I'll start with Glenn Kuiper. Of course, Glenn here, and a wonderful broadcaster and part of the Giants family. Mark Gonzalez is with us, longtime sports writer, Bay Area, Arizona, Chicago, now senior writer at Grand Canyon University. Eric from Giants Sports Talk Live, right, Eric? I got it right?
Yes, sir.
And me. So we're here to talk some ball with you today. So first of all, the Giants, the juggernaut starts rolling, and it's rolling again. And I'll start with Glenn. You saw the game. Giants 7, White Sox 3, 4 home runs, Verlander, and a whole bunch of relievers after that. What do you think?
Well, you know how in spring training, you always want to put on a good show on the weekends, right? That's when you get your fans down. And this weekend, it's investors weekend for the Giants. They have all their investors down, and it's a big party, and it's a lot of fun for everybody. But I know people, like, they want the Giants to play well this weekend because their investors are there. And it was a good start. They looked good. They looked pretty good all spring. I've been impressed with them. And they played pretty clean baseball. They've hit well. They've pitched well. So, I mean, it's spring training, but, we all watch and, we all pay attention. And what do they look like? And they've looked like a pretty good team so far. Today, it was just a real good all-around game. I mean, what more can you ask for? Your star Chapman hits a couple home runs. A couple other guys home runs. You get Verlander for 4 really good innings. So, all in all, it was a pretty good performance and not a whole lot different than quite a few of their games so far this year. So that's good. They've played clean, tight baseball, which they didn't always do last year. And if they do that this year, then I think they could be a pretty good team. But it was very good, solid performance today.
All right, Mark Gonzalez with him, Gonzo. I've known him for a long time. An outstanding baseball man, and you've seen a lot of spring training games, and you get, hey, look, they've won 7 out of 10. You've covered the Cubs, the White Sox, the Diamondbacks, the Giants. What do you make of spring training? Do you put anything into it?
Be careful, because sometimes you fall in love with a player or team, and it completely backfires. Dating back to the '84 Cubs when they made all these trades, winter, spring, and they were like 4-18. Coming out of the chute, they didn't know what they had. They beat the Giants on opening day, and they go on and win the National League East at the time. And they probably should have beat the Padres. They were up 2-0 and let it slip away. On the flip side, if you're talking about individuals, I always point that 1996 when the Giants thought they had a pretty good first baseman who hit pretty well, and J.R. Phillips, and we all know what happened in 6 weeks. So be careful. But yeah, I think the big thing is to see players making momentum toward the end of spring training, because they're going to see tougher pitchers. Pitchers are going to throw all the repertoire pitches rather than just try to get their fastball over the plate. And by the same token, what Glenn was referring to earlier with the Giants playing crisp baseball, that's what you want to see, because you get bogged down with fundamentals at this point of the season. You should be trending more positively this time of spring training, because we're getting down to crunch time where there's got to be separation between who's going to make the team and who's not.
Yeah, Eric, of course, you're on Sports Talk Live, Giant Sports Talk Live. This could have been the opening day lineup today.
Yeah, it
Glenn
could have
and
been.
Gonzo, I'm looking at it. Right, you got Wade leading off, and they love the lefty-righty split. They love doing that. So you got Wade, Adames, Lee, Chapman, Ramos, Bailey, Flores, Yaz, Wisely, and Fitzgerald. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. That's the first thing that perked my ears when I look, or I should say my eyes, because I was watching it on game day. But yeah, I was like, hey, this is an opening day roster. Let's see what they could do, and they got some stuff done. Matt Chapman had 2 home runs I saw in the box score. Lee hit another home run. Again, that's a guy that I'm really excited about. I want to see him really show something, because last year, kind of with his injury and what was that, middle of May, you really didn't get a chance to see what Lee could really do. And he's showing something in the spring, and I'm loving it. A surprise, you guys were talking breakouts, a very small sample size, but the last couple of games that Grant McCray has been in, he's getting hits. And today, what I absolutely loved, he got his only, I think he had 1 at bat, 1 hit, but he stole 2 bags, stole second, stole third. And, that's something that I would love to see about the Giants. I think we talked a little bit about that in that last show, do something different other than just try and hit the ball over the fence. And that was good to see.
Well, Glenn, you could pick up on that. We talked about that this morning.
Yeah, and Eric made some good points, and I think it was the opening day lineup, and a couple things that I liked about the lineup. Listen, it's not going to be murderer's row. I mean, there's talented players there, but I think I said it last week, and Gonzo, see how you feel it, but they're not going to score 850 or 900 runs. It's just not. That's not the way it is. It's not the big red machine, But there's some things to like. I like Lee in the third spot. Is he going to hit a ton of home runs? Probably not. But because of what they're trying to do this year, I think they feel like with Lee in the third spot, you could hit and run with him. He likes to hit and run. Bob Melvin said that, and he actually kind of likes sitting in the third spot. And you say, well, do you want to hit and run with your third hole hitter? Well, this lineup, yeah, you do, and that's okay. And I actually like Yaz and Fitzgerald where they hit today, 8th and 9th, because they both have good speed. Fitz has got really good speed, but they're both good base runners as well. And I think that can be utilized at the bottom of the lineup. And they're both good hitters. I mean, these are not Punch and Judy guys, but good speed and good base runners down there. I like that when you have that, and then you can flip the lineup over, which obviously that's what you want to do as many times as you can. But there's some things that, to like in this lineup. And Bob and the coaching staff, they have just continually talked about, we have to score runs in different ways. They didn't do a very good job of that last year. We watched it. We saw it. It was hard to watch sometimes. Fundamentally, offensively, they weren't great last year. Situationally, they weren't great last year. So I think the coaching staff feels like the players get it now. They saw what they didn't do last year and how it affected them. If they execute offensively last year, even average, I think they win 4 or 5 more games. Well, now you're at 85, 86 wins, and you're right in it. So I don't think it's going to take that much to just make themselves a little bit better, and then work on getting to 88, 89 wins, because that's what got 89 got the couple teams in the playoffs last year. So that is the lineup. They just need to concentrate on the small fundamentals. Follow Willie Adames, who, the other day with 2 strikes, second and third, 2 outs, flips one into right center field, knocks in a pair. That's the kind of stuff they need to do, and they did not do nearly enough of that last year. But I think they will be better at it this year, because the players are starting to get it. They're starting to understand, you're right, we need to do some things different.
Gonzo, you covered games with Willie Adames, of course, when he was with the Brewers. What do you think of him? What should we expect from him, glove-wise, power-wise, and just all around the kind of guy he is?
He's really ascended the last couple of years. He's grown on me. I wasn't sure what his upside was, but he's really turned it up a notch. Not only at the plate, but he's very serviceable in the field. If you play for the Brewers, and whether it's Counsell or Murph, you're going to be asked to do a little extra. That's just the Brewer way. and he's one of those guys that help get him to the playoffs. And then the power dimension, I'm not sure it's going to play in San Francisco, but Milwaukee, boy, he really showed some pop there. And from what the Giant media has noticed right away is he's got a really good vibe about him in the clubhouse. And when you're a newcomer, sometimes it takes a while to adjust, but it seems like he's fit in seamlessly, which bodes well entering the season.
And Gonzo, you've seen him a lot more than all of us. Like, he strikes me, even seeing him down here, but just kind of remembering him with the Brewers. He hit a lot of home runs with Milwaukee, but he strikes me as a guy who thinks about, how can I get this run in? He seems like he has that RBI mentality.
I was just going to say that. He sniffs them out. He sniffs out those RBIs.
And as opposed to, hey, I'm going to hit a 3-run home run once in a while, which is great. But I think the real true RBI guys, I remember Albert Pujols was like that. Albert Pujols hit who knows how many home runs in his career, right? But he would flick balls to right field, with a guy on 3rd and 2 outs. That's how you drive in 100 runs. I don't think you drive in 100 runs just knocking them in with home runs. I just don't think that happens. But he strikes me as a guy with an RBI mentality, meaning I'll do whatever I got to do to get him in, and it doesn't have to be hitting the ball out of the ballpark.
Yeah, Buster Posey did the same thing, right?
Good observation.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
It's team baseball, and that's how the Brewers beat teams. Adjust, hit to the situation. And like you said, he knew where to find that hole right over second base, down the right field line, or if he needed to be yanked, he did it. He really lengthened that lineup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just reminds me of Buster Posey.
John
Buster
Lee
Posey.
Yeah. Buster, same way.
Yeah, go ahead.
Buster didn't care about a home run. He didn't need to hit a home run.
He wasn't trying to sniff out the home run. He was, hey, just get that run across. I'll go to right field if I have to. I love it.
Suppose he wanted to, he could have hit 400. That's how good he was hitting up the middle into right field. But he used the whole field. But Mark, you've covered Pete Crow Armstrong, and a lot of speed, very exciting kid, and the Chicago fans love him, apparently. And we have this Jung-Hoo Lee. Hit one out today. Very exciting player. I mean, I said last week I put a little video of 30 seconds on the internet about him doing something, and it had like 75,000 views within a day. So can you compare those two?
I'm not going to at this point. I think for all the hoopla about Pete Crow Armstrong, he's still got a little more growth in him. He's not complete yet, specifically at the plate. I don't blame him. He's very young. What kind of head scratching, not because of him, but with a guy with his speed, I know bunting isn't in vogue, but why not maximize his speed by having him bunt more? Really, I think that would really make his game more complete, maybe cut down on the strikeouts a little bit, but the ceiling remains high for him. He's one of the fastest guys in baseball. He can really cut the bases very well. His defense we all know about, and it's legit. He plays fearless. I remember when he was in the minors, he told me once he feels he's let the team down if there's a ball that hits the ground in the outfield. That's how fearless he is and how determined he is to make plays.
Glenn, you talked a little bit with Matt Williams today about using the whole field, laying a bunt down, and all that kind of stuff the other way. What were the feelings about that?
Well, it was fast. Matt said two things that I thought was super interesting. And he was talking about Grant McCray, and it's the same situation as Mark just talked about with the young center fielder in Chicago. And we all know about McCray. He's got a ton of talent, right? He strikes out too much. We talk about it all the time. He just strikes out too much. And they're just trying to get through to him that he has to change his mindset some. The problem, and I say problem, maybe that's not the right word, but Grant McCray has some pop. He can hit the ball out of the yard, but he has to realize that maybe that's not what makes him a full ball player, because that leads to strikeouts. And Matt Williams' point is the staff is saying, hey, Grant, bunt. And he's bunted 3 times this year in spring training, and he's caused havoc every time. He did it in over at the Diamondbacks place yesterday, and they were falling all over the baseball. They couldn't pick it up. So it's sort of a mentality of use your speed. drag a ball. If the guy's at second and you got to get him over, drag bunt because he's so fast. And that's a difficult play on the right side, right? So the point is they're just trying to talk to him, Grant McCray, and all the players, like, look at the situation, use your speed in different situations. And, you're trying to get through to young players, but you're also trying to kind of change maybe a little bit of a mindset as a team that do whatever you have to do to play fundamental baseball, right? If you need to get the runner over and you don't feel great about hitting the ball on the ground to the right side, then bunt. Force the issue with your speed. Just do whatever you have to do. And Matt also said, we were talking about Adames, right? And I thought it was great. Earlier in the camp, as I said, he came up, second and third, 2 outs, 2 strikes. He hits one tough slider, hits it into right center. Didn't hit it real hard, but knocked in 2 runs. Next batter gets a hit. Adames comes around and gets to third, and he's clapping his hands. And Matt said he was so fired up about his at bat. And it was a flare to right center that knocked in a pair. And he said, here's a guy who's been around for 6-7 years. He's a great player. And spring training game, and he was so excited, Willy Adames was, that he executed the right way. Got the run in with 2 outs, didn't overswing, took a little off, handled the tough slider. And Matt's point was, how great is that to see when you got a guy who just signed a $180 million contract, and he's acting like a high school kid, being so excited that he did the right thing to help his team. That's the kind of stuff that wears off on other people in the dugout. And that's why there's a lot to guys like Adames and Matt Chapman. There's a lot of intangibles there that make them even better than their statistics show. And I just thought it was a great story because that shows what Adames is about. And it kind of talks what we said too about do the right thing for your team to get the runs home, and it'll show up on your stat sheet. That's a great combination, right? What else could you ask for? So,
Gonzo, you've covered, as I said, the World Series champions. What did you see in spring training with that Diamondback team way back in 01, right up to the Cubs in 16? What did you see in spring training that you could put your finger on and say, boy, this could be a good year? Well, what did you look for?
Well, they had a lot of veterans that knew that was their last hurrah. But I think more importantly, it goes back to what Glenn just said about playing team baseball and doing whatever's asked of you to win. I mean, you look at that game-winning rally against Mariano Rivera in the top of the 9th inning. Grace, knew he was going to come in with a cutter, but just threw his barrel out, made sure he made contact, and got the single. Same with the game-winning hit with Luis Gonzalez. He wasn't trying to jack it out, but just make contact. Even though he got jammed, he fisted it just far enough to get over Jeter's head. And those are the little things that you notice right away, that guys, no matter how successful they are prior to a certain at bat or certain season, they adjust to the situation. And I think 1 through 35, I would say 35, because they used a lot of guys, including a seldom used lefty in the Giant organization named Troy Brohan, who had some kind of weird mystique against Barry Bonds. He seemed to get Barry out. Wasn't overpowering. I didn't strike out Barry, but found a way to get him out. And those are the little things that lead up to a championship. It's not just one thing. It's a lot of things.
All right. No, I'm with you on that. Pitching, the Giants' pitching has been solid. The starting pitching, as Glenn said, Verlander, Fornings today. I love Hicks. I've said this last year, and I told Glenn this morning. Of all the pitchers I saw last year in spring training, Hicks to me was the best I had seen. Now, what you do with him and how far you go with him, Hicks. Mark, let me start with you on that. What do you think about the transition of Hicks to a starter here? He's, going to last year, he'd only pitched 65 innings, right, Glenn? I think the most in a year. Yeah. And last year, what, did he get to 100 last year? I don't even know.
I've always been a big Hicks fan. The kid was drafted out of high school out of Texas, lasted till the 5th round, which is kind of crazy for a guy who throws as hard as he did. Maybe there were some control issues in high school, but you just can't ignore the arm. And I know the Cardinals use him in relief. He really was dynamic for a while. I don't know what happened afterwards, but I thought it was a good observation by the Giants to have him make the transition to a starter where he can use probably a few more of his pitches, pitching a rhythm where he's repeating his delivery a little more, which will help him throw strikes. And now I think the next step is be a tad more economical so he can pitch a little longer. I know they don't ask starters to pitch deep into games, but it can only help him and the Giants if he can, give them 6 innings now.
What do you think, Glenn? I'll start with you, and then I want to get Eric's thought on Hicks. Just let him go and just see what happens, and he's a starter, and just, hey, here's the ball. You do what you got to do.
I think so. I mean, listen, I think one of the things that probably attracted Jordan Hicks to the Giants was obviously he got a nice contract. I mean, a 4-year deal. But I think, they told him, hey, you want to be a starter, we're going to let you be a starter. And I think he did want to have a chance to be a starter. And the Giants said, sure. There may have been teams that weren't comfortable doing that. So I think you have to let that transition play out. Last year was hard. It was his first time starting, and he had success early, kind of ran out of gas. I don't think that surprised anybody. I think most people kind of felt like, listen, let's let him go as long as he can. But at some point, he may not be pumping 100-mile-an-hour fastballs in August, because he's still adjusting. So let's see what he does this year. I mean, there's so much talent there. And, like Marty said, you watch him pitch and you're just like, holy smokes, but he's also a max effort guy. I mean, every pitch is like max effort, so can 6 innings become a regular thing for him? I don't know. But if he can give you 5 and be dominant, do you take that? I think this year you probably would, but I think you roll with him. I think he's got so much talent. He's put in a lot of time. He's bigger, noticeably bigger. He stayed in San Francisco. He's at the ballpark every day. The offseason, really working hard, and there's a lot there. And I think you got to let him go. He may not throw 200 innings, but boy, if you got 130, 135 out of him, I would take that in a heartbeat, because I think it would probably be a fairly high quality 130 innings.
Oh, hold on. There you go. I think there you go, Marty. Sorry about that. You were muted for a minute.
Geez, it's my show. You can't mute me all the time.
I don't know what happened.
Good, Lurie from English. I got Daniel Lurie's sign up in my room there. All right. What do you think about it? I agree with Glenn. I said give him the ball, let him go as far as he can. Got a lot of depth, and just you can get 130 out of him, it'd be great.
I'm on board with that, because I think having a year under his belt, at least put his foot in the water last year, really helped him understand his body a lot better. And then navigating and taking the next step, getting to maybe that 130, 140 inning mark, he'll know. Rick Sutcliffe always told me that a lot of times as starters, if you're fatigued, it's good idea to start pitching more with your head than your body, because you'll get by a lot deeper pitching with your head if you're fatigued. And then as you build up more stamina, then you can rely more on your physique.
Yeah, I just give him the ball and let him go as far as he can. Well, the show is brought to us by a number of wonderful people. One is Rick Robin, who is down here, and he's the Napa Valley Contractor of the Year last year, and he's been a big part of our show. And Eric and the guys put together nice little videos for some of our sponsors, and I appreciate it. So let's take a breather. We'll come back, and just a 30-second spot. But I want to ask you guys, breakthrough. Who's the possible breakthrough player? And Gonzo, maybe someone in baseball who's not on the Giants, but let's see who you think may be a breakthrough player this year. And we'll do that right after this.
It's been a pleasure working with Rick Robin this year. Rick Robin, ROBBEN, NapaConstruction.com. Rick, the last time you were on with us, you told us about kitchen and bath remodeling, but there's a lot more going on up in your area.
Yes, there is. ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, which are known as granny units. We can do your existing garage, attached garage, even building a new unit in the back. And so what we do is come out, bring our architect out there. Such a great thing. No sewer hookup fees, no water hookup fees. So that's what we do.
Rick, how does one start the process with you? How does one get in touch with you?
Oh, you call Tammy, 707-332-7575, 7 days a week.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com. Rick, the thing I like about this, no problem for me. You come out with the plans, the permits, everything is in-house, no fees, and you get a new unit that you can rent out and get money back on your investment right away. I like it, Rick.
Thanks, Marty. Love talking to you.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com.
Breakout player. The Giants brought up a lot of players from major leagues last year. They did well. They kind of established a little bit of a timeline for themselves. But now you got to take another step. Eric, I'll start with you. Breakthrough player for you.
Ooh, breakthrough player. Ooh, this is. I'm gonna go with the pitching. I'm gonna go with Birdie. I like Birdsong. I want to see him come out and absolutely deal. I know it's spring training, but I've liked what I've seen from him since spring training so far. But let's make him a breakthrough. Maybe he is the starting pitcher of the future for the Giants. We'll see.
All right, Gonzo, where do you go?
This is a crazy one, real crazy one. You remember the hype about Paul Skeens, right? Coming out of LSU 2023. Well, he had a teammate named Dylan Cruz who was ranked above him before that 2023 season. He might not start the season with the Nats, but he'll be up shortly. Right fielder, terrific talent, will really grow on you. He's my pick. I just think this guy has a ton of upside. He's very polished. I love the bat coming out of LSU. He's my guy.
All right, Glenn, where do you go?
I got a guy. I know a guy. I'm going to go Jung-Hoo Lee. I mean, I think he's really talented. And, we just didn't get enough of him last year. I mean, it was unfortunate. With 37 games, you could see the talent last year, but you could also, he was first time in the States. There was a lot going on for him. It sounds to me like, in talking to some of the people around the Giants, he's a little more relaxed this year. And he's had a good spring. He's looked really good, but there's a lot of talent there. We know he's really good in center. We know he's a really good base runner, puts the ball in play. We're seeing some pop. But I think just from a taking that next step, which I think that's what the Giants need. Some of these young players to just take a little step, the Ramos and the Fitz, just take another little step. I think Lee, the step is already there. We just haven't seen it yet. I think he's going to have a terrific year. I think he needs to stay away from the center field fence. And I know that sounds like I'm joking, but I'm not. I mean, he goes full on. And at some point, I think it's already happened. I think the Giants are saying, listen, dude, we need you out there. You can't be plowing into the center field fence, whatever the score is. I get it. That's the way you play, but we need you out there. And there's an art to staying on the field as a big leaguer. And he needs to have that. So that's my guy. I think he's going to have a big year. I think he's going to sit nicely in that third spot. He's not a masher, but he's going to be just a really, really good all-around player for the Giants. And I think if you can put together a bunch of good all-around players, you're going to have a pretty good team. So that's my guy, Jung-Hoo Lee, and I'm sticking with it.
All right. Okay. All right. So listening to Glenn, I thought of Wrigley Field and the Ivy. Well, what's behind the Ivy? Is still a brick wall there?
It'll never change. It's a landmark.
Yeah, Marty.
Yeah.
It's brick. It's brick.
Yeah, you're going to run into that. It's something to think. Just listening to you about Jung-Hoo Lee, it's changed a lot of careers. Center field at Wrigley. Well, my guy is Logan Webb. I think last year he came back to the pack just a little bit. and people adjusted to him. He's strong. He looks bigger to me, stronger. He's a father. He just looks like he's a tougher guy this year. So for me, I'm going with Logan Webb. I think he puts himself back in the elite class in the National League. I think that's what I see with him. But it is true. The one guy we didn't mention is Patrick Bailey. What do you see with Patrick Bailey? The way the Giants are handling him this spring, we don't know who the backup catcher is going to be. Tom Murphy looks like he's out. Sam Huff, the linebacker, is looking all right.
Sam Huff was a dirty player, Marty. He was a dirty player. Did he take Frank Givert's head off? Didn't he do that? Was it that?
He laid him out. He did lay him out. Maybe that was Chuck Bednarik who did that.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I don't remember
who did that. But where do you see this whole thing going, Mark? Where do you see the Giants going here, just as a team?
Well, I mean, as a team as a whole, you mentioned the offense and how they got to be resourceful. And one thing you got to keep in mind is the Diamondbacks, not the Dodgers, led the league in runs scored. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that bingo right there tells you they got to be really resourceful. And, what the signs you've seen early, bode well for them heading in that direction. And having a guy like Verlander who's got something to prove, but also still has a lot in the tank from the standpoint he's going to be used. I think we all know he's not going to pitch 8 innings every start, but this guy seems to navigate lineups and innings very well. So, and I think that was a terrific signing by the Giants for 1 year at $15 million. So that really helps. It takes some pressure off Webb, although I agree with you. I think he's going to trend upward and do pretty well. So that's a start. But you still need to stay healthy. Defense, once again, because you're not scoring as many runs the opposition, you got to play D to stay in games.
Yeah, it brings me back to Bailey. That's what it brings me back to him. They're sort of cutting him back a little bit. They want the backup catcher to play 2-3 times a week. The catcher is just catch the ball is what they're kind of telling him. Don't worry about your offense and all that. Good championship teams, you've got to be good behind the plate. And see, you've covered him, Mark. Eric, you've watched him. Glenn, you've seen him all, going back to Del Crandall with the Braves. So when you were just a little kid, that.
I'm not that old, Marty. Del Crandall. He was like, "Come on, Marty, I'm not that old."
But seriously, what do you think?
Manager. I remember him as the manager.
They are trying to make Bailey the guy who's a catcher. And it's a Gold Glover, but I think they're pulling back on him offensively a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Listen, I think I don't know. I think when the season starts, you're going to see him, 4 days a week. I have not seen anything different from that. But I think, in fairness to what you're saying, Marty, they may be concerned and trying to figure out a way to not let these second half slumps happen that Bailey has had in his first 2 years as a big leaguer. And when you get tired catching every day in the big leagues for the first time, I think it caught up with him a little bit. So they could be trying, okay, how can we help this guy out maybe in the first 2 months of the year to hopefully help keep him stronger the last 2 months of the year. So that is a possibility, but I think they got an interesting decision to make. I mean, I think the backup catcher thing is super important because, he's still backup catcher is going to play 30, 35 games, right? Maybe more.
Yeah, they're not going to push Bailey.
Yeah. And so that's a lot, that's a lot of baseball for the backup catcher, so, and they have an interesting decision because the Huff kid, he's on the 40-man, right? And he's probably more of an offensive player, big, strong kid, hits the ball really hard, strikes out a lot. Defense, from what I understand, is okay. Stassi, on the other hand, is more of a veteran. He's been in the big leagues a long time, defensive oriented. so probably above Huff defensively, maybe below him offensively. So there's your decision. I mean, and Murphy's out. We don't know what's going to happen to him, but I think it's between Huff and Stassi. Stassi's not on the roster. I don't know. I mean, I think that's a difficult decision for the Giants because, you always think, well, Huff's got a good bat, but we've seen teams with bad catchers, and it catches up with you. No pun intended. I mean, you can't have a box guy back there. You just can't.
No.
And
well,
so we're seeing how good Huff is. Is he average? Is he above average? But that's going to be an interesting decision. And it's one that it may take it right down. I think Stassi, because he's a veteran, probably has some outs in his contract at spring training where the Giants will have to make a decision by this date. So I'm keeping a close eye on that one. What do you do if you're the Giants? Which way do you go? I don't know. We'll see.
Gonzo, Brzezinski with the White Sox, right? David Ross. Who was the? I'm blanking on the Diamondbacks. He was terrific. He had a lot of home runs. The Diamondback catcher in those days, I forget.
Damian Miller.
Miller.
Wisconsin guy.
Is absolutely strong, solid cheesehead, Damian Miller.
Right? Remember that? Right. The Brewers.
He was
good.
He
used to kill everybody.
He was a good player.
But look at those teams and the catchers you had there. You need somebody like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, taking one step back, you look at baseball now in the minor leagues. These catchers aren't asked to catch more than 90 games, 80 games. So right there, you're not developing the base that you once had. So therefore, teams you're talking about load management. So that means your second string catcher is going to get, at least 60, 65 starts and probably more playing time coming off the bench if there's double switches and all that. So, right there I see is one of the reasons why you don't see catchers catch as much as you used to, because they're just not developing them in the minors to play more than 90 games a year behind the plate. So that's one issue there. But, getting back to Bailey, I think the world of them. I think it was wise for them to take a catcher first round after the guy that's now with Pittsburgh. That didn't work out too well, but they were wise, in hindsight, to do that. So I would like to see them at least have him play the same number of games as last year rather than kind of throttle back, because I think the upside is high there with that guy.
And maybe, do you think they should
it is spring.
Maybe uncomplicate it for
Eric.
Bailey? Maybe just have him bat from the left rather than have him being a switch hitter. Make it a little bit less complicated, less work. Maybe just have him bat from one side of the plate, and then you could have. I hate to use the word platoon, but you could platoon your catcher in that regard. Again, maybe just something else that can help Bailey along to get along through the season. Just again to try to reduce the workload, so to speak.
Yeah, he's got to play for me. Yeah. I wouldn't take him out for anybody unless you had to. And if they do this load management thing, let them do that. Right. But Kyle Harrison worries me a little bit. It's a shoulder. It's the velocity is down. It's spring training. I'd like to see him come out. There's only a few more starts here until, the season's not that far away. The Dodgers and Cubs are going to be playing in less than 2 weeks, in the Tokyo series, something like that. I don't know. Anybody worried about Harrison? Glenn, you thinking about him at all?
Listen, you don't like to see what happened yesterday. They were hitting some rocket shots off him. I was there and it was loud. I always try to look at it. I like to check with the coaches after, like, the next day to see how they're kind of handling it. And they're, listen, it's spring training. We didn't have great stuff. We got knocked around. This is what happens. So I'm probably not as concerned as you are, Marty. Now, if he goes out there, his next start, and lays an egg, then it's different. But they may say, you know what, let's have his next start be at the minor league complex, where maybe he can relax a little bit, maybe work on some stuff. That wouldn't surprise me at all. because it could be just maybe he just needs to work on a few things. I have not heard that he's hurt. I know the shoulder last year, but and ultimately, I think your best team is probably with Harrison as your fifth starter, and then you got Landon Roop, who is terrific, and maybe you put him in the bullpen or he's ready. Where does that leave Birdsong? Maybe Birdsong starts in AAA. You believe it or not, but that speaks of how much depth they have, which is a good thing. So let's worry about Harrison if a week from now we're having this same conversation. And then you got to start thinking, is he okay? Or, what's going on? But he does have the dip in velocity occasionally. So he was pretty good his first outing. He looked real good, actually. Not good yesterday. So it wouldn't surprise me if they take him to Papago and say, let's watch you close. Let's get you, 50, 55 pitches, maybe 3 innings, even if against minor leaguers. Let's just, let's see where you're at. So that I don't know that that's going to happen, but that would not surprise me whenever his turn would come up, which would be, early next week at some point.
Casey Schmidt just won't go away. He's got a great arm. He's playing second. He could play third. He could play short. He's hitting the ball a little bit, hit another home run. What about Casey Schmidt? You guys, I'll throw it out to Eric. Casey Schmidt working his way onto this lineup on this team. He's not going to start at second, but is he going to be on this team?
Man, I don't see why you wouldn't. The guy, he's showing something in spring training, and that's all you can ask, right? Spring training, you want to see some guys go out there and to a certain extent make a name for themselves to try to get that recognition and get on that roster. I was worried with Wisely because I didn't know if they wanted to have that left-handed bat. We kind of talked a little bit about that last week. But yeah, I like what Casey Schmidt's doing out there. He's showing a little bit of pop. He's getting some hits. And as you said, Marty, he could play 3 positions on the infield. He's got a great arm. He can pick it. I like the kid. I felt bad for him, not being able to get as much run as he has been able to during the regular season last season. And let's see what happens. I say you go with him as far as at least to be on the bench. I mean, because Adames and Chapman, they're going to have to take a couple of days here and there. Second base. Who knows what can happen with second base because we got to see what Fitzgerald is going to do. It's probably going to be his job to lose. So, yeah, I would love to have Schmidt on the roster.
Yeah, we're at the halfway point of spring training, so there's still 3 weeks to go. But I think the fact that they have knowledge of what he can do, especially I think playing 3 positions, really helps a lot going into the season. So they have some idea of what he can do, and if somebody goes down or is a little slow, he might earn himself a few more at bats. So he's trending okay, but we still have 3 weeks left. So let's see how it plays out. But he's put himself in a decent position at this point. Yeah,
he's looked good. He had a double today to the wall, home run yesterday. He has looked good. He's looked better. His at bats have been better. I think at times last year he may have been a little bit stubborn with adjustments. But then again, you're a young kid not playing every day at the big league level. That's really, really difficult. The only thing that may be working against him is he bats right-handed. And the Giants desperately need left-handed bats. They're short left-handed bats. That's where Wisely comes in to the picture where he may have a little advantage there, Wisely, over Schmidt. Not because necessarily one's a better player. I think nothing separates those two. I think they're fairly close talent-wise. But I do know the Giants feel like they're short left-handed bats. And that may be where Wisely could possibly have the edge there, unless he, doesn't hit at all in spring training. But, that won't be the case. So that's another interesting one of the few spots that is open, and it's a spring training battle. I don't think there's any question. Fitzgerald's going to play. He's going to play every day, and there may be times where he needs a break, but there's too much to like about Fitzgerald, so I don't think there's any question that he's the second baseman every day. but there's really only, the way I see it now, there's really only one backup infield spot. Because you got Wilmer and you got, Encarnacion, who I think they're both going to make the team, but they're somewhat similar players, right? Right-handed hitters, DH, first baseman. Encarnacion can play in the outfield some, but you're probably going to keep both of those guys, I would guess. We're never right on these things, right? There's always the roster's always, there's always some moves where you're like, I never thought of that. Okay, so that we'll probably be talking about that in 3 weeks, but it certainly looks like it's two guys, backup infielders, fighting for one spot, and they're both fairly talented young players. So you got to remember too, if they look good in spring training, we're seeing it, but so are all the other teams seeing it, and there's scouts probably writing down Casey Schmidt's name saying, you know what, the Schmidt kid looks better this year. His at-bats are better. So maybe you need something. Maybe you need a reliever down the road, and the team likes Casey Schmidt. So there's a lot of different things going on here. But I think that the fact that Wisely bats left-handed is a big thing in this decision that they're going to have to make, because they just don't have a lot of left-handed hitters.
No. All right. Next question. We're going to take a break in here from River Islands, but the next question for me is the Padres. People kind of putting the Padres down a little bit. Everyone's saying, well, it's the Diamondbacks. That's a team that's going to come up, and you guys said scored all the runs in the league last year. The Dodgers have the Dodgers, and the Padres lost Profar, and they're a little bit different now. So let's take a break. I want to get your idea about the Padres and what you think about them. So we'll do that right after this.
Hey, it's Marty, and I'm here to tell you that it's time to discover the islands, and of course that means River Islands. They're celebrating 10 years of bringing the good life to Bay Area homebuyers. What's more, Del Webb, one of America's best-known builders for active adults in the 55 and over crowd, has just opened 3 neighborhoods at River Islands. They're building a huge community center on its own lake, all for buyers looking for a great lifestyle and a little less maintenance. I like that. Homes are priced from the 600,000s. Start your tour online at riverislands.com. Isn't it time for you to discover the islands? It sure is for me.
There. And we'll hear about the Inn at the Tides and the Tides Wharf restaurant up in Bodega Bay, and also about Georgie Brothers. We appreciate their support. All right, Gonzo, I'll start with you. The Padres. Are they still the Padres? I mean, there's no Profar, but, you look at Jackson Merrill and Machado and Tatis and all these guys. Come on. Well, what's wrong with the Padres? Pavetta's there. I know they lost Musgrove for the year, but they still look good.
Yeah, you always wonder about them. You keep hearing down there, this is going to be our year. We're going to overtake the Dodgers, and they fall short for, one reason or another. I mean, they still have Dylan Cease. That's going to be an interesting study as he gets closer to free agency. I followed this kid since he was a minor leaguer in the Cub organization. He's always going to give you a solid day's work, one of the better pitchers in the National League. But, there's times where that pitch count climbs a little too high and doesn't give you the innings. But I think this year he's going to be determined to really show that he's going to be in that Corbin Burns atmosphere when he's a free agent. And then, Darvish missed a lot of time last year due to a personal matter. I've been a big Darvish fan covering with the Cubs, but, you wonder now how much is left in the tank. He's had a lot of innings in an arm that, had Tommy John many years back. So you wonder what's left in the tank for him. But for some reason, you look at the Padres and, man, this is a solid team, and yet they always fall short. And I don't think it's just because the Dodgers are that much better, but there's some ingredient missing there.
Yeah, I mean, like the last thing Gonzo said, I mean, I agree with them, and it sounds like a criticism of the Padres, and maybe it is, but I mean, they got so much talent, and they got a thing going down there. I mean, you go to that stadium, it's awesome, right? I mean, the crowd is into it. It's loud. I mean, they got it going on down there. But you always sort of go, I don't know. With the Padres, there's lots of talent, right? Long-term talent. But I don't know. I always kind of have that feeling too, where you're not 100% sold on them. I don't really always know why. They won 93 games last year.
Yeah.
But we've also seen that team with a lot of talent down there just go off the rails, right? And if it can go off the rails under Bob Melvin, who's one of the, sharpest, straightest, let's keep this thing going managers there is. So can something go weird down there? Yeah, I think so. Bogarts, he was hurt a lot last year. Where's he at? Right. Machado's going to be great. The kid in center field's going to be great.
Merrill. Yeah.
Where's Cronenworth? Is he an all-star player or is he just an everyday okay player? Profar was one of their best players last year. I mean, I think they're going to miss him. He went 24 and 85 last year, home runs and RBIs. He could be missed, right? Yeah, kind of out of nowhere, right? Like, whoa, Profar's good again. What's going on? But it's just I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that we're rooting for the Giants, and you're just kind of like, well, it's the Padres. I don't know. There's always a little bit of concern there. But it's not because they don't have enough talent. I think they've certainly showed that, there's plenty of talent there. But you always feel like if anything rocked the boat a little bit, that it could go off the rails because we've seen it happen before. So I don't know. It's a tough team to read, I think.
Yeah. Question mark. What's more likely? The White Sox lose 110 or the Cubs win 90?
White Sox lose 110. I would have leaned the other way until seeing the White Sox at a workout and a game about 12 days ago. And I don't see that wow factor regarding their lineup. And sure, they're in the midst of a rebuild. I give them that. But if Luis Roberts not in that lineup or he's chasing pitches, you can pretty much pitch around him and, take your chances with Andrew Vaughn, who had a strong second half, but I think they're looking for him to put it together. Then after that, they're really going to be starved for power. I mean, they were last in baseball in home runs last year. And then with the pitching, you're just waiting for their prospects to blossom. This Noah Schultz is the real thing. But he's got some growth ahead of him. Hagen Smith, their first pick from last year's draft, could be a fast riser, but you still need those innings in the minors. And then the bullpen, they made some changes there, but I don't see a significant climb to avoid 100 losses. 110 losses. So they still got a lot of work ahead. I would have said otherwise until I saw them in person. I know it's spring training, but they still have a lot of growing to do.
All right. All right. Here's the next question.
So Gonzo has high hopes. Gonzo has high hopes for the White Sox.
All right.
No.
No.
I'll ask Glenn and Gonzo the question since they were there. Who's your favorite manager to cover? Gonzo, you start with that one. You've covered a lot of interesting managers.
I've been very fortunate because I think every manager I've covered I've really liked a lot. Spent a lot of time with Dusty, also Joe Madden. I learned from Buck Showalter in 2000. Bob Brenly showed how to handle a good situation he inherited. Ozzie Guillen probably did the best job of managing in the postseason I've seen of any manager I've covered in 2005 with the White Sox. But if you're going to ask me as far as running, is from a media standpoint, I would give the nudge to Dusty over Joe Madden, as far as from a beat writer standpoint. Joe was terrific getting the Cubs to where they had to go. Just terrific. He did some weird stuff, but a lot of it is designed to take pressure off the players, but also make them believe they are better than what they were. And he showed that in his first year in 2015 with the Cubs.
Yeah. All right. Glenn, how about you?
Well,
Now,
that's
your
tough.
guys look longer. Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I first started covering the Giants before I went to the A's, I mean, Dusty was there, and I mean, how can you can't lose with Dusty, right? I mean, he's awesome. I mean, he's still awesome. You see him, you just want to talk to him. And then when I went to Oakland, it was Ken Maka, who's good manager. Marty, Mock, kind of didn't say a lot, and then they went to Bob Guerin, which was just one of the biggest disasters I've ever seen in my life. I just don't even know how that was a managerial choice. And then, Bob, I mean, I was with Bob for 10 years or 11 years with the A's. And so I would say probably Bob, and not because he's the Giants guy, just because I got to know him really well. And I just appreciated his professionalism and how serious he took his job. And he wasn't afraid to have you come in his office after the game. And sometimes he wanted you to, because he just wanted to talk about the game and maybe not talk about it in front of the writers, where he maybe had some feelings of, stuff he didn't want in print, not necessarily bad things, but, and I always kind of enjoyed that about Bob. And so it's tight between, Bob and Dusty. You can't really go wrong either way, but there really wasn't, really that many. Felipe for 1 year, and then I went across the bay. I was not here for Kapler. So it's a small list, nothing like Gonzo. Gonzo's kind of seen all different kinds, but yeah, it's a toss up between Bob and Dusty, and I have a ton of respect for both of them.
All right. For me, I guess because I was just starting out, Art Howe and Maka really taught me what Major League Baseball was all about. I didn't know anything. I still don't know enough. But Art Howe took a lot of time with me to explain the game and why he was bringing Buddy Groom to face Paul O'Neill. And I would say, why are you doing that, Art? Don't do that. But we had that kind of relationship where we could talk.
That's a good man right there. Art Howe's a good man.
He was probably my favorite. All right, I'll ask you guys one more question. Let's take one more break, and I'll let you guys go. Who's got a better chance of getting in the Hall of Fame? Pete Rose, who's going to be pardoned by the president, or Barry Bonds? And there's some new rules now that the Hall of Fame committee is putting out, that if you get less than 5 votes, be on the ballot for 3 years, and if you come back on the ballot after that and you get less than 5 votes, you'll never be on the ballot again. And that's where Bonds is sort of his dilemma. So who's got a better chance, Rose or Bonds, getting into the Hall of Fame? Let's hear from the Tides Wharf Restaurant and the Inn at the Tides up in Bodega Bay.
Gene Bagato checked in from the Tides up in Bodega Bay, and he said while the crab season hasn't produced great quantities, the crabs that have been delivered have been excellent. Down at the wharf, fresh crab is readily available for guests to enjoy, either in the restaurant or in the fish market to take home, along with all of the other varieties of seafood delicacies. And across the highway up at the inn, large, comfortable rooms are readily available at winter rates for those who want to get away but don't want to deal with 8 hours driving up to Tahoe. So if you're looking to get away for the day or a weekend, remember the Tides Wharf and the Inn at the Tides in beautiful Bodega Bay.
For putting that together. I know we're beginning with Eric. Who's got a better chance of being in the Hall of Fame, Barry Bonds or Pete Rose?
Man, well, I saw there was some news. I guess the commissioner is going to, look about taking Pete Rose off the eligibility list. So I'm going to go with Pete Rose just for that reason. Barry, I think, is going to have a difficult time. I get to see Pete Rose getting in there before Barry Bonds.
All right. Gonzo?
Well, I think it still boils down to the fact that Pete Rose broke the golden rule. You know, gambled on games. You walk into a clubhouse, you see the list of rules, and he broke the golden rule. And and Barry, to his credit, hasn't been going around with a sandwich board over himself saying, "Hey, get me in the Hall of Fame, get me in the Hall of Fame." He's gone about his business the right way post playing career, and I'm happy for him. But getting back to Rose, I mean, those rules are black and white when you walk into a clubhouse.
That's fair.
Yeah, that is fair. That's a real Marty. That's one of your all-time great questions. I got to be honest with you. I don't know. I mean, initially, I would probably say Pete. If he does get pardoned, and then it gets into the commissioner, and if he thinks it's okay, then I think Pete may have a shot. Gonzo's points on Barry are great. I mean, my only thing with that is I think the people that are
in charge,
the people who refuse to vote for Barry, I don't see them changing their mind, and that's fine. That's their decision. They're opposed to what they think he did and that kind of thing, and I totally get that. Whereas I almost feel like the people that would vote Pete in, whether it's the Veterans Committee or whatever, I almost feel like they would be a little more sensitive to it, believe it or not, even though he broke the golden rule. You're exactly right. I just feel like voters would maybe give Pete a chance in their mind before they would give Barry a chance in their mind, if that makes any sense. So I would give a slight edge to Pete. And you know what? I hope they both get in. I do. I mean, that's just my feel. I think they both deserve it. I know they're not perfect. They both made mistakes, but I'm just not a hardliner, and I'm okay with people that are, because that's their opinion, and they're allowed to have their opinion. I don't have a problem with that, but I think they should both be in.
Yeah, it's going to be once he's put on the eligible list, then it's up to the Hall of Fame to, allow him to be on the committee and all that kind of stuff. It's a tough one. Clemens, put him in there, and Manny Ramirez and A-Rod, and there's certain great players. They were just some of the best players of all time.
Yeah, my thing, Marty, is, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but listen, we all know there's players that in the last 20 years that have gotten voted in. We know what was going on. There's guys that got voted in that were using steroids, but for some reason they got through it. But listen, there's guys that have gone in recently that, everybody in baseball was like, oh yeah, but they didn't get caught. They didn't, they may have treated the media fairly, and that's not a criticism to Gonzo's people or anything, but listen, there's guys that have got in recently that, I mean, let's be realistic here, but Barry was kind of front and center to the whole thing, and he's paying for it, and you know what, that's the mistake that he made.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting, especially if there's a political movement behind Rose getting in.
That's true.
I mean, we do live in a
that's never happened before. That would be a new thing that could push it one way or the other. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other element too is that there's gambling everywhere now in ballparks.
Right. Exactly. Right. Well,
that's very true.
Here, this begs the question, Marty. How about we add Shoeless Joe Jackson to the list, right? Would you add him as well with Pete Rose?
Yeah.
Only if you wear shoes. You can't be in without shoes. I'm sorry.
He looked good coming out of that cornfield, though. Come on, Marty.
Come on. He needs shoes. Without shoes, you're not getting in. I'm sorry. It's not. That's it. All right. Well, all right. The attention span of the audience is about an hour, so I really appreciate everyone being on. It's fun to do this.
It is.
I can't wait the season to start, but to have someone like Gonzo on, who's got such a wealth of information, and Glenn, who's just a fabulous broadcaster and analyst, and Eric with your opinions as well. It's fun. It's fun to talk about this stuff. So I appreciate having everybody on, and that'll be our show. We'll go out with our Georgie Brothers commercial, and then we'll be back next week with another edition of Marty Lurie and Friends Talking Baseball. So, guys, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Marty.
Right.
Nice seeing you, Gonzo. Eric,
you.
take care, man.
Take care.
Gonzo, great. Yeah. All right. Let's hear from Georgie Brothers as we go out.
Hello again, Marty Lurie here to talk about my good friends at Georgie Brothers, the largest family-owned furniture store in the entire Bay Area. Right now and good through March 17th, you can save hundreds of dollars on my favorite line of furniture, Stressless. I own Stressless furniture, and I can tell you it's the most comfortable place to sit in my home. Visit them at GeorgieBrothers.com. That's GIORGIBROS.com. And remember, tell them that Marty sent you.